Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Today's video is a suggestion from my own mother. She suggested I do a video on this topic, and so I thought it was a pretty good idea. I've done videos kind of like this before, and she just wanted me to explain to people the pros and cons of this lifestyle, because of all the things that's going on in the world today. A lot of people are wanting to get out of the cities and even the suburbs. They're wanting to get out into the country. I hear it all the time. I get emails just about daily now, and I'm very backed up on them because, you know, it takes a while to give a lengthy response and sometimes research and, advice or anything like that people are messaging me, emailing me, asking, well, we want to get out. We want to purchase some land. We want to get out and kind of be as self-sufficient as possible. And a lot of people think that it's really expensive to do and that it's just not within their means. They can't do it. They may watch certain YouTube videos that these people that there's nothing wrong with them, but they have quite an elaborate homestead. Everything is just working just perfect. Everything, it's just picture perfect, like out of a magazine. And of course, that's what everyone wants. They want everything to just be right. And that costs money. And so when a lot of people start doing the math and figuring and thinking, man, there's just no way, after I buy the land with a house or build a house and barns and fencing and tractors and all the equipment and man, it gets really expensive, and it does, but it's doable. And not only is it doable, but you can do it for a lot less than you think. Now I'm not gonna pull the wool over your eyes here. It's hard work sometimes, and there are sacrifices you have to make. So I want to just talk about that. I'll be honest with you. I don't know exactly where this video is going to take us. I have the ideas in my head, but we're just going to see where this goes. So, for those of you that are wanting to move out, wherever it is, you're stuck in a city, you're stuck in the suburbs, and you see the handwriting on the wall. I mean, the economy is going. Man, it's not looking good with the economy. I said yesterday on yesterday's video of how Bank of America, the Fed has been pushing this idea that this inflation is just transitionary. It's just transitionary. It just means it's just a temporary thing. Just for a little while, it's just a hiccup, a little speed bump in the road because of all the lockdowns and stuff. And it's going to get better. And the economy will just bounce back, full throttle, full speed ahead. But a lot of people are saying, it doesn't really look like that. There's too many things that are happening all at once that indicate that the economy may be down for a while. And in fact, there's certainly within the realm of possibility that the economy could completely collapse. And Bank of America even has said that they don't believe that this is transitionary inflation, that the Fed is behind the curve, that they've dropped the ball on this, and that we could be seeing 8% inflation at least by the end of this year. And it could go up from even there. They're predicting a very harsh recession over the next few years. And that's coming from them, a source that isn't always I don't think, the most believable, because Bank of America, they're one of the big boys. They're one of the big banksters. So if they're saying that it's going to be that bad, odds are it could be a lot worse. And then there's many other things, food shortages or the appearance of food shortages, and so many other things going on. So you want to leave, you want to get out, you want to purchase land or whatever. Prices of land, from what I have been able to determine, not just in my area, but everywhere, has gone up. Here in the Ozarks, depending on where you're at, depending on the county, depending on how far away you are from a big city, depending on the quality of the land, You used to be able to, 2 years ago, in fact, when I started this channel, I was telling people that you could still easily buy land in the Ozarks for $1,500 an acre. In fact, at that time, I was even seeing a few places, not often, but you would find places that were 1,000 or less an acre. And good quality land might be in the neighborhood of 2,000 to 2,500 an acre. It's gone up since then. On the low end, 2,000, maybe 2,500. I have still seen below 2,000 an acre, but you usually have to buy 20 or so acres to get it that cheap. But you can still buy it for a reasonable amount of money. I'm still finding occasionally 5 and 10 acre little mini farms with a small older farmhouse on it. That's well under $100,000. There was a place just down the road from us not quite a year ago, and it was 5 acres with a little 3-bedroom, 1-bath farmhouse with a couple little outbuildings, and I think it sold for around $59,000, $65,000, something like that. So it's still possible, but you do have to search for it. But that's usually not the worst of it. The worst of it is the lifestyle, and especially for those that want to be self-sufficient. One of the reasons why I like the Ozarks so much is the majority of the Ozarks, the counties in the Ozarks, because it's so rural. There's little to no building codes at all. Ordinances on how you can live, it just doesn't exist. So you can be completely off-grid if you choose to be. You can build your own house. You can do it all. Do everything completely on your own if you want in most of the counties. Now, there are some that have, bigger cities in them, but for the most part, you can do that. This is true in some places in the United States, but only some. The more rural states that are, I guess, more freedom-loving states, are this way. For instance, like Colorado. Colorado has a lot of land that is very rural with very few people in it. But even in those counties, you can't do this because Colorado is a big brother state. And, Colorado's beautiful. For any of you that might live in Colorado, Colorado is absolutely one of the most beautiful states in the Union. It is a complete paradise. It's unfortunate, though, that the state government has taken on this very controlling role, and so you can't live the way you want to live there. So that's an example. So when you're shopping around, you got to do your research. It's not just about the price, and it's not even just about, well, it's a good piece of land and it's got water on it and blah blah blah. Can you live like you want to live on there? And that could be a problem. If you want to have solar power, if you want to collect rainwater, if you want to build your own property, or start off with like a little cabin shed and convert that to a house, or live in an RV for a while. Some places you can't do that. And here in the Ozarks, in the majority of the counties, you can live like that. So that's one big advantage that I tell people of living here or finding a place that's like that, because that's very important. It's not that people like us want to live, like bums. It's that to be able to live this way, here's the thing. This is something to think about. To live this lifestyle, you want to try to get to where you can either not have a job outside the home or work less. So if you're living inside the city and maybe you have a nice home, but you're having to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week, or maybe you and your wife are working, you and your husband are working, and you're working a lot of hours to maintain that status, maintain that lifestyle. Living out in the country and having a little farm, how are you going to take care of it if you're having to work that many hours? So of course you want to get to a place where you're working less hours. So that's where the sacrifices come in. That's where you cut back. You drive older vehicles. It's something that we're dealing with right now, because both of our vehicles, while they're not junkers or anything, we're dealing with mechanical issues with both of them that we're trying to work through. And, the obvious quick answer, modern answer is well, just go buy a new one, or a nearly new one. For most people, that means you have, including us, it means you have to take out a loan. And cars and trucks are not cheap. And I'm not going to go in debt for another 30, 40, $50,000, because that monthly payment is going to mean that, you know, that's just much more of a draw on our income or our bills, and it's going to cause us to struggle more. And you know, we want to be able to be here as much as possible and enjoy this place. And so that is a goal with a lot of people, because what's the point of having something where if you can't be there all the time? So you're going to have to make some sacrifices. And this might offend some people, but I am not a politically correct person. Modern humans, especially Americans, are soft. They're soft. They're used to having so many modern conveniences. For those of you that are 40 and older, especially those of you that are in the 60 year age range or older, think back to when you were young. The things that didn't exist back then that exist now. And the things that exist now that didn't exist back then, nowadays they're looked at as necessities. You know, a nice refrigerator with a nice ice maker and water that comes out ice cold, and a dishwasher. And you know, someone commented once to us that they just couldn't believe that we don't have a dishwasher. You don't have a dishwasher? It's insane. How do you wash your dishes? You know, we didn't have a dishwasher when I was growing up. Well, we did. It was myself and my mother and my sister. We washed the dishes. There's a lot of things like that you can choose to do without. And of course, now if you buy a farm out in the country and it's already got a dishwasher in it, then hey, good for you. But when you're building like what we've done, for now, we've just decided that's just not a necessity. There are other things that you have to make choices on. Sometimes, you know, getting things in place in a house are different out in the country, especially out here when you're kind of living sort of off the grid and rustic. For instance, for a while, of course, we have an RV, and for a while, the only functioning plumbing that we had was in the RV and not actually in the house. The house was livable and enclosed and insulated and electric and everything, but all the plumbing hadn't been hooked up and everything. And so we were using the plumbing in the RV to bathe and things like that. Now, you know, it could be even more rustic than that, but if you've ever, especially for you big guys, if you've ever, you know, taken a shower or something in an RV shower, it's not necessarily the most comfortable thing, you know. Big guy like me, you know, I'm 6'2", and obviously you can tell I'm big. And getting in one of them little RV showers is kind of awkward, but it works, it's functioning, and so we did that for a while. I actually, because I got so tired of doing that, last summer I built an outdoor shower. It's solar heated, very simple. You know, I have a big plastic water container that's black, and it sets up really high on a stand that I built for it. And you fill it up and the sun heats it on a good summer day, and by the evening you go out there and you've got a pretty warm shower. And it's in a spot that, you know, it's all secluded. And so there are things that you can do to make it work. You have to be creative. You have to think outside the box. That is something that with Americans, it's become difficult. For those of you that are construction workers, build houses, things like that, America, the way America builds houses, for instance, is very much standard. There's so many standards that, you know, if you go to a brand new house that was built in California, there's going to be similarities to a house built in Missouri and Florida and New York and, you know, everywhere. There is a standard. If you go into other parts of the world, though, there isn't always a standard. Sometimes they use different tools, different, you know, things to make stuff, you know, and they get creative. And sometimes you have to do that. You know, I've built straw bale houses. I've built, you know, mud houses, you know, like an adobe type thing. I've been involved in you know, alternative type constructions. I've helped build a cordwood house once. So There are ways that you can build structures that are much cheaper, and they may require you to work more, but you can do that. So if you purchase a bit of land and it's got a lot of woods on it, you could always research, say, cordwood style houses, which, if you don't know what that is where you take, wood that's 16 inches long and you stack it like this, and instead of logs, which you stack long ways, and of course you fill it in with mortar in between, and that's how you build your house. And you can do that here. And they're not going to come and they're not going to kick you off your property because you decided to build a house like that. There are ways to do that. When I ran the water lines here, I did that myself. Part of the water line we dug with a piece of machinery that we were able to get for a while, but we weren't able to get it all done with that. And so the rest of it, guess what? We did as a family. We took turns going out there and digging until we got tired, and then the next person would dig, and the next person would dig, and that's how we got it done. Our ancestors here in the United States, they lived a very different lifestyle, obviously, than we did. Of course, they didn't have the modern things, but even if you take that away, they were not afraid to risk things. They were not afraid to suffer. They were not afraid to work hard. They were not afraid to get hot and sweaty and injure themselves even sometimes because they've worked so hard. Again, Americans are very soft. And this lifestyle, it can be rough. Even here in the Ozarks, I'm sure most of you have heard stories about, say, Alaska. I've got a couple of friends that live up in Alaska, and they've lived there for years, and they're the hardcore kind, completely off the grid. And they said that they have known, just since they've lived there for the last several years, at least a decade, that there's been numerous people that they've met that'll come in there, they're gonna start life all over again in Alaska and the rustic, wilderness, and they'll go out there and they'll try to build them a little cabin, and then 12 months later or 18 months later, or maybe even by the next winter, they're out of there and they're gone and they never come back. That actually happens here in the Ozarks. I've known several people or heard stories of several people that will, get a piece of land and try to live off grid, and they just can't handle it. And they can't handle it because they're too soft. They can't handle it because it's work. They can't handle it because you have to make sacrifices. And the Ozarks isn't anywhere near as rugged as Alaska. You're hardly in the Ozarks, even in the most remote places in the Ozarks, you should be at least no further than 30 minutes from like a store or something. And usually you're within 10 to 15 minutes of a small little, corner store gas station type thing. And maybe 30 to 45 minutes to an hour to an actual town. But the point is it's not that rugged out here, but yet people still can't make it. I don't want to encourage people to do this if you're not ready for it. It is hard. It is, every day. Every day I'm out here. There's not a day that since we've lived here that I've had off to just sit back and relax and take it easy. Every bit of time that I have available, I'm doing something around here. We all are. We're all working. But we're improving the place too. When we moved here, there was nothing. There was nothing here. It was just land. And now we've made a lot of improvements, and we're building a house, and as we live in it, and a lot of things, fencing and barns and shelters for animals and all kinds of stuff that we've done. And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying this to let you know that it can be done. So for those of you that are very serious about getting out of the city, getting out away from people because you see the things that are happening and how bad they're getting, and you have this desire to get out on your own more, more self-sufficient, it is possible. You can do it, but you're gonna have to probably give up some things, unless you just have a big bank account and you can just write the checks out. I don't even know if people still do that anymore. But if you really want it and you really desire it and you really put your head to it, you can do it still to this day. There's probably less and less time available for you to find a place and to get it set up enough so that you can survive, because things are changing rapidly. But I think you can do it if you really put your head to it. And if you're lucky enough and you look for it right, really hard and look for it, you might even find kind of a community already set up around you, or at least people that are like-minded and living like you. And that's very common here in the Ozarks also, or people that that consider themselves homesteaders or self-sufficient or off-grid. So I don't want to discourage anyone, but I also don't want to make you think that it's just this easy lifestyle. You just move out and everything works on its own. It doesn't. You have to work hard at it. But it's like anything in life. My grandfather used to tell me, anything that's worth having in life is worth working for and saving for. So that's what you need to do, folks. And it's probably needed even now more than ever, because the world is changing so rapidly and it's getting quite dangerous. And as things collapse more and more all around us, the higher populated areas are going to become worse and worse and worse, just like what we've seen over the last 12 to 18 months. All right, folks, thank you all for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.